you're a photographer or a videographer, a lot of people say that gear doesn't matter. And for the most part, they're pretty much right. Gear doesn't matter. But there's a fundamental problem when the gear that you do have, whether that's a DSLR, GoPro, or just an iPhone, when that doesn't inspire you to create, something's got to change. And that's why I've switched to the Nikon Z6. Hey guys, how's it going? Nick here and welcome back to another video. And today this is kind of like an update video on the channel because I have recently changed my camera to the Nikon Z6 or Z6, depending on where you are in the world. And before we get all these comments about why did you switch from the Sony A7 III, which was quite commonly referred to as the best camera released in 2018, I want to go through what I was saying at the beginning of this video, which is how you need to be inspired to create by the gear that you have. And if that isn't happening and you feel like it's a little forced, then there's something going wrong. And I think that's sort of what started to happen with the Sony A7 III. Now, don't get me wrong, that was a great camera. I absolutely loved it. And yeah, it was one of the best released last year, but for some reason, and it's hard to articulate and explain, every time I picked it up, I just didn't feel this sort of connection with the gear. I didn't feel like going out and creating with it. And that's sort of hard. Creators might understand that. You sort of have this sort of bond, and that's kind of weird with the camera that you use when you're a photographer or a videographer. And if you're not enjoying using it, then it's hard to go and create, right? So I went out and researched and looked at different cameras on the market that were similarly spec'd because I love the specs of the A7 III. And so I went out and I actually grabbed the Fuji X-T3 because I thought maybe that would be my vibe, and quite quickly realized that that wasn't it. Again, it just didn't feel right when I was using it. And yes, that is a great camera in its own right, but it didn't feel right. And I had actually been researching the Nikon Z6 for a while. And I thought, shit, let's just go and do it. Let's go and buy it. It was similarly priced to the A7 III, a little bit pricier at the moment. So I picked it up with the kit lens, the 24-70, and like, I love it. Again, it's hard to explain, but just having this camera in my hand and I'm using it to film right now, it makes me want to go out and shoot. It's just hard to explain why that is. In terms of specs, it's very similar to the Sony A7 III. It shoots 4K at 24 frames a second. It does 1080p at 120 frames a second. It can do 10-bit raw output. But in terms of internal features, it's very, very similar to the A7 III. It has less native lenses, but you can adapt all the Nikon F-mount lenses if you want. It also has one card slot, but that doesn't really bother me that much. It is an XQD card, which was expensive to get into. When you don't have those lying around, that's like a $300 investment just there. Look, I did it and I don't regret it. The XQD card is super quick and rugged, and that isn't a problem for me. But just holding this camera in your hand, it's just, the ergonomics are incredible. I love the colors that are coming out of it. And like I said at the start, just using this camera, it is inspiring me to go out and create more, take more photos, shoot more video. And that's what's important to me to a camera, is the specs. Yes, they're important to a degree, but wanting to use the camera more is what's important. And that is why I've switched to the Z6. I will do a more in-depth sort of review, I guess, of using the camera after I've had it for a little bit longer. But I just wanted to go through on the reasons why I switched, because a lot of people out there, when I speak to them, they don't quite understand. Hell, even when I went to buy this camera, they didn't know why I was switching from the Sony A7 III. Hopefully you guys out there, photographers, videographers alike, understand what it is to sort of be one with the equipment that you're using. And if you aren't, everything's just a struggle. I just feel this camera is right for me. So I have switched to the Nikon Z6. Everything you've seen in this video was shot on the Z6. If you want to take a look at it, there is a link in the description below. And like I said, I'm going to do a more in-depth video in the coming weeks on a full review on ergonomics and ports and everything like that. That will be in a later video. This is more about switching to a camera that makes you want to create, and that's what I've done with the Nikon Z6. Anyway guys, if you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, join this community. We are growing fast this year, and until the next video guys, see ya.